Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to start off by thanking you for joining our webinar on the future of convenience store revenue growth. If anyone has any trouble hearing me, please feel free to let me know in the chat box. I'm your host, Sarah Spaventa, and I'm the Digital Marketing Manager at Thanx. And I have with me our presenter and Head of C-Store Solutions, Billy Draper, who will be leading the majority of the presentation. Today's webinar will be around 25 minutes long, with 5 minutes at the end for question and answers. Please send us your questions in the chat box, and we will be sure to leave some time at the end to make sure we go through them. With that, I will kick it off to our presenter, Billy.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to some of you. Today, the topic of discussion, obviously the future. Just a light subject matter here today, but really what we're going to cover off on is a few things before we kind of look at the future of convenience store revenue growth. We're going to look at the current state. So some of this will be a little 101. Some of this will be 401, if you will. But the idea is we want to set the table accordingly and look at some of the challenges and opportunities currently in the space. The next piece is what else is on the radar? What else can we expect? What else do we need to be prepared for? And then ultimately, talking about that in context to C-store revenue strategy, the solution to today's problems. So that being said, let's jump into the content here. It's no surprise that the primary industry challenge, and coincidentally the opportunity, is that 7 out of 10 guests buy gas but never walk through your front doors. For some, that is less. Brands that have are brands like Wawa, as an example, who have a lot of really good food services. So that might be less for a brand like Wawa. Those brands that are offering healthy options for their customers. For some, it's more, quite frankly. But ideally, it's something that looks like this. And now, it's not for lack of trying. There's been a number of noteworthy attempts to help increase in-store purchases and frequency. But obviously there's declining trends, there's consideration and perception. And if we look at some of this, let's take, for example, cigarettes. Used to be the way to get people in the door. But the number of adults that smoke today are at an all-time low. 14% of adults actually smoke today. That's a declining trend. The next is coffee. Yes, we all need a little pickup. These two categories, these things are addictive, right? They're natural ways to get people in the door. They're good things to have on your shelves. But coffee, unfortunately, that green logo right there dominates the market. The footprint of Starbucks, as an example, and other brands that kind of mirror that is everywhere. So 79% of coffee purchasing decisions are done before someone even sees one of your convenience stores. So their mind's already made up. Now, the next piece is really the piece where there are a lot of traction being made today. It's offering healthier food options, more full-service food options, whether that's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, grab-and-go healthy snacks. And regardless of that, and I think you're trending in the right direction there, the millennials, and we'll talk about them in a little bit more detail today, they make up they're the largest purchasing audience in history. In fact, there's 4.8 million 26-year-olds today. And these people, these millennials, consider quality over location and price. So convenience is really not their main, what they seek. And unfortunately, all the years of associating those warm snacks, rolling on those rollers, that late night kind of mentality, that's not undone just yet, but they're starting to make some traction there. So understanding that perception it takes a little while to overcome. You're trending in the right direction there. But speaking of millennials going back to that, they're impulse buyers. In fact, annually, USA Today shared this report. They spend about $5,400 annually on impulse buys. 70% of that $5,400 is spent on food. But 85% of those people that respond to that survey said their impulse purchase involve taking advantage of a dealer discount. So we can kind of see at the end of the day that they're very opportunistic shoppers. They act quickly, they're impulsive and social, and they tend to be more social, can be easily swayed one way or the other. And their decision can be made with some of this data that they find on social. So at the end of the day, big audience, but they're impulsive and opportunistic. So how can we tap into that? We'll look at that here as we advance forward. But what else, Billy? Please share more good news. Tell me something I don't know. Well, convenience is about to get more convenient, and it already has in some markets. The Pacific Northwest, San Francisco, Chicago, there's this footprint's growing. And if you think about how Amazon acquired Whole Foods, that digital giant, a digital retail giant, now has a brick and mortar presence that is substantial. And this Amazon Go concept essentially is, hey, I swipe my app, I walk in the store, I grab something, I go. There's no cashiers, I get charged. It's super seamless, it's frictionless. I don't have to worry about waiting in a line. It's ultra convenient. And so 43 of those survey respondents said if an Amazon Go opened nearby, they would shop less at a traditional C-store. So if you think about consideration, this is a big disruptor as it relates to C-stores. So the reason why we're here, how can I convert those pump customers to in-store guests? How can I change their perception? How can I increase their visit frequency? That's the opportunity there, right? We have 70% of people that don't go in the store. Well, the other opportunity is if I can get the other three of those people, the 30%, to come in and visit a little bit more frequently, it kind of makes up for that deficit there. But how can I get those people from pump to in-store, increase visit frequency, create brand preference and affinity, and get ahead of this further disruption that's happening? The answer is, it begins with a strategy to convert commodity and convenience customers to connected guests. The language there is very much the way to think about this. You have customers, but you want to treat them like guests. And if you think about who does a really good job of treating guests well, it's hospitality, the IHGs, the SPGs of the world. They deliver experiences that customers love. And as you think about the challenges that you have as C-stores, as convenience stores, long history of just being convenient. And as you start to shift and you think about offering more food services, you have to behave a little bit like the hospitality chain at that point in time. You have to think about creating connected guests. And when you do that, they're going to value you because of the experience that you deliver. They're going to prefer you over the other options in the area. And product and service, quite frankly, will start to take a little bit of a back seat. And so these are higher value, lower cost customers at the end of the day. It's a great audience. These people are the ones you want to retain. These people are the ones that will advocate on behalf of everything that you do. And you can see there to the left, commodity and convenience is lower value, higher cost. If you think about the game here, the funnel over the years has been all about acquisition. Acquire new customers, offer different things to acquire new customers. It's a motion that's exhausting. It costs a ton of money to acquire customers. It costs even more money to acquire customers when you lose customers that are high value to you. So the idea is you have to have a strategy in place, and it has to happen by owning these customer moments. This is where the customer lives. They want your message delivered to the palm of their hand. Their cell phone is your billboard if you do this right. These are the moments that matter. When someone dips a card at the pump, we need to know they're on premise. We need to engage in that moment. We need to own the experience in that moment. And so the idea is there's many moments that matter in the customer journey and the relationship that you build with customers. And in these moments, you could do things like drive-in store purchases, relevant to the customer based on their preferences, based on their historic preferences, based on data. We have a lot of conversations here with C-store operators, and many times when you go through an ROI analysis We get some inputs, and then we say, hey, here's kind of the future of what we believe we could deliver to you from an ROI standpoint. And when we start to ask about the customers and what do they know, it's very limited. It's not for lack of trying, once again, but a lot of the data, what we find is that you don't own it. It's owned by third parties. You've got to own that data. You got to understand your customers. You have to create an owned audience so you can market on your terms, so you can influence on your terms. So this whole idea here is that if I can deliver these relevant messages to these people, I can increase the attach rate of the C-store and that associated customer spend. I can even influence them to spend more. My average check size is $6. If I can get them to spend $7, $8, that incremental revenue builds over time. If I can start to do this in a program that I dedicate myself to for a year, 2 years, 3 years, it becomes a really big opportunity at the end of the day. Other things you can do in this moment. Gather in-moment feedback. Let me understand how you feel about our products, our services, and our facilities. This is different than what most people do today. Most people send surveys 24, 48 hours, 2 weeks after a visit. Or there's unstructured data out there where people are leaving their thoughts, feelings, giving you every indication on how to win their hearts and minds. But they're doing that on third-party sites. Facebook, Yelp, Google, TripAdvisor. It's really hard to manage that and make sense of all that data. So if you can gather in-moment feedback, hey, I swipe my credit card at the pump. I'm sitting there pumping. I'm kind of browsing through my phone anyway. I get a response after the transaction's done saying, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me how you feel about today's experience and would you recommend us to your friends? Tell me how you feel. Are you passive, promoter, detractor? And then tell me why. That's very valuable. The next piece of this is winning back potential turn customers. I had mentioned this earlier. Acquisition is tough. Acquiring new customers is exhausting. So you've got to be able to have a mechanism, and the mechanism must be automated, by the way, to win back customers. If I'm somebody who visits weekly and then another more convenient, a brand I prefer opens up between me and you, and now I only visit 2 times a month, and I'm a high lifetime value customer, that's painful. You must win back my business. You can't allow me to churn. So you need a product that will help you protect the revenue, the value derivative that you've created with this customer, and automatically win them back. I mentioned this earlier. Acquiring new customers is tough, but it's easy when it's done through first-party referrals. When someone tells me, when someone tells you about something, you take that first-hand referral. We all know that's much more valuable than hearing about it through an ad or on a billboard. You need a solution that will do this. And then there's risk on the other end of the spectrum. We have opportunity on one, we have risk on the other. Risk is associated with those third-party disruptions, whether it's construction that now has shifted traffic away from my front doors, or it's bad weather, extreme weather conditions for a long period of time. That hurts our growth. That hurts our revenue. We need, for lack of better words, an insurance policy against these risks. We need to be able to connect with customers and say, hey, we understand there's been a temporary disruption, but we would love for you to come back now. And here's a little incentive to get you to walk back through our doors. Surprise and delight. The best brands are doing this, regardless of industry. You've got to surprise me, make me feel good and delight. Can you do that in moment, or can you do that when I'm not even thinking about you? We look over here to the left, on the right here. This person could be on their couch. Surprise and delight them when they're out there. Extend the brand, expand the brand, the footprint beyond the premise. And then this helps you act less like a brick and mortar business and more like an online retailer. Think about Amazon. I mean, Amazon is the ultimate at this. Now they're moving into brick and mortar. They're bringing the online retail mentality to brick and mortar. You have to have a strategy to compete with this. So in order to own those moments, it requires a customer engagement strategy tied to a best-in-class solution. This will earn you the access to that moment. Remember, this is we protect ourselves. These customers protect themselves. But if you can tell me something good, I'll let you come in and live in my world a little bit. But that solution must be easy to use, easy to set up, personalized and worthwhile. And if we look at the examples here, these are brands that are knocking it out of the park when we think of best-in-class experience. Uber, for example. Hey, I register a credit card one time. I hop into a car with a stranger, which is crazy to think that people will do that. But it's so easy. I'm willing to hop in the car with a stranger. And oh, by the way, I'm going to tip them. I'm going to leave them feedback as soon as I pop out and walk into my destination. That's how you have to behave. You think about Amazon, one-click purchases. I wish it would have never been invented, but man, it is awesome because it's so easy to use. It's passive, it's seamless, it's frictionless. Personalized, Southwest, great brand that does this. They know who I am. They can find me on social. They can surprise and delight me. They give me status. I chase status with them. I try to do everything I can. It's really not even status. I still have to fight and jockey for position in boarding, but I feel good about that. And it has to be worthwhile. Think about Starbucks. Hey, I load a card. I go through. I get these rewards. They know me by my name. I feel really good about that. So it has to be worthwhile in order for me to invest in taking this extra step with the brand. And it must clearly express the WIFM, the what's in it for me to the customer. Remember, 85% of survey respondents earlier said their impulse purchases involve taking advantage of a dealer discount. So it does have to have a WIFM, unfortunately. That's the way the world works these days. And to further support the idea, it's kind of tied to loyalty, which has been a four-letter word, historically, but it's more about incentive. It's more about incentive and experience these days. And if we see here, how likely are you to use the following amenities at a C-store? Rewards is at the top in this survey here. This came from Convenience Store Daily News. Rewards programs that track purchases. Now, some of this is happening at the pump, and that's great. But we got to be able to we have to own that data. We have to get people inside. So it can't just be a fuel rewards program. It has to be a brand rewards program. And people want this. The data indicates that. So how does a best-in-class solution behave? It looks something like this. This is Ashley. We're just going to walk through this verbatim. So Ashley is an active loyalty member of Oh Yes, the brand that we created here for this today. So Oh Yes Fuel. When she dips her card at the pump, the pre-authorization, that trigger that happens at every pump activates logic that identifies that Ashley is at the pump. We've got her here. She's one of those people that normally doesn't come in, but now she's on site. I know she's on site. I have the strategy. I have the technology. I can then this will trigger an automated push notification to her phone that includes an offer specifically designed to drive her in the store to make a purchase. And oh, by the way, the example here shows an app. But if you want to be best in class, you got to be where the consumer is. Some consumers don't want apps. Some consumers prefer text message. Some prefer email. Some prefer Facebook Messenger. So your program has to live where the consumer lives. This is how a best-in-class solution behaves. And when it behaves like this, we can drive people in to our stores. And oh, by the way, there's people to the north, south, east, west of Ashley that are doing the same thing. This is not a one-size-fits-all program. It's not a one-size-fits-all strategy. It's a relationship-building tool that helps you build those relationships with individuals so that you can mitigate risk, take advantage of opportunity, increase check size, get feedback, win them back, create advocates. This is how a best-in-class solution has to behave. And this is a revenue strategy, and we'll talk about how this all ladders up to a revenue model. Because knowing your customer is crucial. If we go back and we think about strategy, going from commodity and convenience to connected, we have to know. Today, the data is missing for most. As I mentioned earlier, when we have these conversations, most people struggle with providing us with customer data because they don't know. They don't have a CRM, customer relationship management tool. They don't have a marketing automation platform to do some of this. So with Ashley, for example, we can know certain things because when she transacts, we can understand her status. How is she loyal? We can understand her average check size, her visit frequency, her visit preference, how she feels about us, her favorite items, location preference, etc. And there's more than 40 different attributes a best-in-class solution will provide you. And that best-in-class solution will also put people in buckets: value segmentation, VIPs, big spenders, advocates, etc. Now I have a strategy to engage these people in moments that matter most to these people. It's the right person, right time, right message. And the model is simple. We see this in the data all the time. Your best customers account for about 65% of your business. So it's driven by about 25% of your customers. High value customers who love what you do. If you could just turn the knob, turn the gear just a little bit and influence their behavior to then come into the store when they might not, or come into the store and spend a little bit more than they would, you can increase that spend and frequency. We can help drive same-store sales growth. A strategy like this will drive same-store sales growth. It will increase average spend and increase the visit frequency. This is the model. It's very simple, but you have to have the data, you have to have the tools, and it has to be relevant. Now, we talked about how this is easy and what a best-in-class solution should look like for the consumer, how it should behave. But how should it behave for you as the merchant? It has to be simple. Revenue reporting should not and does not require a team of data scientists anymore. It does not require spreadsheet gymnastics, to quote the VP of sales here at Thanx, one of my favorite quotes. He's full of idioms, and I love it. But the idea is it should be very easy to read, hey, every action I take as far as it relates to customer engagement, whether it's automated and it's a win-back scenario or it's a one-time offer that I put into the market to drive people in because we've had a third-party disruption, I need to understand how much revenue that action is generating and what are the costs associated with this. And then I need to understand this in three terms: incremental gross margin, ROI on the fees, and same-store sales increase. This is the readout I need. This is what holds me accountable to that strategy. Now, we've got about 3 minutes left to get us to close to that 5-minute mark. This next piece I want to spend some more detailed time on, because this is a connected customer strategy and the corresponding revenue value model. We kind of covered a lot of this today, but at the middle, the idea is I need to increase revenue. The future of increasing revenue looks something like this: knowing my customers better, understanding how they feel, not just transaction data. How do they feel? How can I make them feel better? How can I capitalize on when they feel good? And then I need to market in moment. The days of a marketing calendar that gives you a plan on a page that says, here's what you're doing for 12 months, that being your sole marketing motion is gone. You can't do that anymore. Social starts kind of introduce that, but this is taking it to the next level. I need to do this when people are with me live and they're not on Facebook and they're not searching on Google. I need to do this. I need to tap in their phone and say, hey, by the way, you need to do this thing. Market in moment, mitigate risk. There's plenty of stories out there that exist that say at any point in time, something negative can affect our business and affect our business in a very, very bad way, dipping revenue. We got to have a strategy. Model behavior. How can I take one customer, increase their lifetime value 3-4x? That solves the equation, right? Associated with maybe it still is 30% of people that are coming to the store, but if I can get them to do a little bit more and model some behavior with them, now I've got a strategy, I have a revenue strategy. And then ultimately we have to measure that. And so when we look kind of advance to the next slide here, there's these 8 different kind of business values a strategy like this will give you, and there's associated outcomes. Increasing revenue, driving incremental revenue, that's one. Reducing acquisition costs through first-party referrals, reducing churn. Decreasing discounts, incentivize on lifetime value. It's not a discount program. Loyalty does not have to be a discount program that compromises margins. It could be an incentive program that encourages good behavior. Increase margin, drive people to higher margin items. Mitigate the risk associated with this event. Own the audience so you can market on your terms. Quit being held hostage by third parties who own the data, who own the terms and conditions, who can say, yep, you have an audience, but today you can only get to 2%. And oh, by the way, you have to pay me a couple $100s to do that. And then obviously we got to understand how people feel about our products, services, and facilities, because we have to optimize. We have to make sure we're operationally focused with our strategy, because the way people feel is a good indicator of how successful our business will be. Now, that gets me to the end, and at the 25-minute mark, I will pass it to Sarah, and we can field some questions.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Billy. If anybody else has a question, feel free to put it in the chat box. We've got one question, which is a great question that Billy can touch on a little bit further. How do you get more out of some of your best customers when they're already stopping in every day or sometimes twice a day?
That is one of the questions we get asked often. And if you think about those people that are making those purchases with you, this is where you can extend it a little bit more, right? We talked about those first-party referrals. Make it easy for them to refer. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that they come in and purchase more. It could be that they refer people to you, and they get rewarded for that. They get incentivized to refer people. So those first-party referrals, they become your acquisition engine. The other thing is give them experiences. If you're rolling out things like healthy food items or full-service food options, it could just be an experience. Come in and try this thing. You get promotions all the time. Make them feel special. Merchandise. There's a lot of different ways that you can continue just to grab, hold on to them, and make them your best customer and build more affinity over time.
Great. The next question. How can I learn how Thanx can drive revenue specifically for my business in particular?
That's a beautiful question as well. Part of what we do here at Thanx, and we've worked with some very serious operators in this space, and we've created a revenue model that essentially says, give us some inputs, transaction volume, average ticket size, number of locations. I think there's 7 or 8 different inputs. We put those into our model. We run an analysis against that, and what we'll see is, based on this business model here, we can look at increasing revenue through incremental visits, but we can also look at the effect and what that might mean for the other things that fall underneath this. So we can run what we call an opportunity analysis, and that'd be a great first step to kind of understand how we can kind of forecast the future revenue for you.
Great. And now this is a little bit of an interesting question. What if my store is in a non-English speaking neighborhood?
Well, that is also an interesting question. We know that our communications of our platform can be crafted. There are different ways that we can understand preference. So if we, through the sign-up process as an example, we put a language preference, give us your language preference. We can be bilingual in our outreach. We can be trilingual, whatever we need to be. We can create those preferences so we know that not only do customers want to be communicated on on text message or app or email, but what language. That's an easy one to get to.
Great. And we're running a little bit short on time, so I'm just going to finalize it with this last question. How does the product offering impact the customer experience? It's difficult to take risks investing in inventory that may not turn out well.
Well, the good thing is a platform, a best-in-class solution, you can create control groups. So you can actually test some of this. If you're looking at an investment in a product, rather than jumping in full and blindly, try it with your best customers. Try it with the people who like items, because we can find that data. Give it a shot on them before you go full Monty, and then control group that. Hey, we sent it out to these people and not to these people who are but we saw it had really good response. So that gives us some indication we can make an investment of this potentially. So there's a couple of different ways that we can help get to that insight for you.
Wonderful. If anyone has any further questions, please feel free to email me. My email is shown on the screen here. I want to thank everyone for attending our webinar today. We'll be following up with an email with the webinar recording in 2 to 3 business days. If you're interested in learning more about what Thanx can do for your convenience store, please also feel free to email me and I'll set up some time to chat. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day and enjoyed the presentation.